Hello again, Yakuza members. I'm King Link, and today we're reviewing Yakuza Kiwami 2. Honestly, it's been a crazy year. This is actually the 7th video I'm making that's referring to just this one franchise in under a year's time. It's an extremely aggressive release schedule that Sega has made for the franchise, but in a lot of ways, I think it's worked. I've played 3 Yakuza games in a row without a chance of forgetting anything about them. And with that said, well, welcome to Yakuza Kiwami 2. This will be a little bit of a long video. I really want to dive into this game, but I'm going to try to find some interesting scenes to show. However, this game is so chock full of great moments. I'm also going to have a little supplementary video, just filled with random stuff that I found and recorded over the course of the game. I'll link it at the end, and it's on my channel, so there's even more of Yakuza's weirdness available for you to check out if you're really that curious. So let's begin with the obvious piece. This game looks really good. Out of the 3 Yakuza games on PC so far, I'm kind of torn between Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami 2 for the best graphics. Yakuza 0 is a more constantly great game, with almost every character looking shockingly good. Yakuza Kiwami 2 has a little more variety in the characters. Sometimes it's one of the best looking games, like this scene here from the opening. But most of the time, it's not exceptional, just really good. Still, the game looks so good in action. Kamurocho is beautiful once again, and looks amazing, even for a district we've seen in 2 previous games. You know, the big change for Kamurocho is that it's an open world now. There's almost no loading screens in the game. You can actually just walk into convenience stores or shops or stores without a cut in the game. Even Serena, the bar that you usually go to, has no cut, and that's really cool. Similarly, combat has no transition as well, other than a title card for the opponents. It's all really slick. Now, some of the largest interiors do have a small loading screen, and I do get that. But even walking into the large lot above Purgatory is a fluid transition, and these are minor things, but it makes the game feel so much better. There's also a new animation system to make this work as well as other stuff, and while it looks fine most of the time, well, when it starts to have issues, it gets odd. There's this clip from the preview where I just kicked this ragdoll all over the place. It mostly happened in this one scene, but it does happen every so often. Similarly, Kiryu sometimes bounces off objects at weird angles. It's not a huge problem, but something that I do want to call out, just small things that could be improved. So, the graphics are very good, but let's talk about the story. Now, I'm going to try to avoid spoilers, but honestly, Yakuza Kiwami doesn't. My preview actually has 3 relatively major spoilers for the Yakuza Kiwami game, and if you're looking at playing this game, you probably should already play Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami both, because they tell us the story that leads up to this, and honestly, they're both fantastic. But I'll try to give you an idea of where Yakuza Kiwami 2 starts. Now, in addition, I'm going to be showing off a cutscene here. It's from about 30 minutes into the game, right after the preview that I've released. This introduces a major character, but don't worry, it's awesome. Just enjoy the footage and realize this is a very early scene. It's not really a spoiler, this is just the introduction of this character. And Yakuza Kiwami 2 actually takes place a year after Yakuza Kiwami. Kiryu's been out of the Yakuza lifestyle for a while, and what happened at the end of Kiwami is set in stone. He's now living with a strangely older Haruka. It's been a year, but I think Haruka went from 8 years old to about 13 in my mind. Basically, puberty just really made her shot up, but honestly, I like this version of Haruka better. That's my guess on ages and actions, of course, but she's grown up. The whole game starts with the characters thinking about Kiryu in the past year, and then starts with Kiryu and Haruka going to a cemetery for a ceremony of remembrance, essentially, where he meets, now, small spoiler for the end of Yakuza Kiwami, but not that big, Terada, the 4th chairman of the Tojo clan. Honestly, that's not the big spoilers I'm talking about at the Yakuza 2 gives away, but trust me, let's leave it there. Now, Terada actually ends up getting shot. His dying wish is that the Tojo clan forms an alliance with the Omi Alliance. The Omi Alliance, if you haven't played any of the game, is kind of a group out of another area, and they've been in the series already. They're from a different district, but all of a sudden, Kiryu, who's been out of this lifestyle, has been pulled back in. It's Godfather 3 all over the place, but you know what? It kind of works here. And the story is actually all about Yakuzas this time. To me, it's a huge improvement over Yakuza Kiwami, which was focused a lot on Haruka, and not as much about the Yakuza lifestyle that Kiryu seems to be out of, but really is focused on for most of these games. And here, Kiryu's fully back in dealing with this world, and honestly, it's great to return to this style. Now, as part of this, Kiryu actually has to travel with someone. I'll leave that as a little surprise for you guys. And he has to travel to the Omi Alliance and meet with them, which actually means he has to go to Sodenbury. I apologize if I get that wrong. And if you haven't seen that area, it's great. But it does share a lot with Yakuza 0, which was also set in the same area. It's the same map, pretty much. But it's not a bad amount. It's actually really fun to visit this world with a completely different character than Yakuza 0. But the map, like I said, is very similar. Of course, not everyone wants this alliance to happen. And a bunch of stuff happens. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but when you reach Sodenbury, you actually end up meeting with Ryuji Goda, which is what you've been seeing on the screen. And yeah, he's kind of awesome in a lot of ways. This is one of my favorite villains of the series, beating Kuze, who I adored. Just every time Ryuji's on the screen or just dealing with something is a major moment where Kuze was more of a pest. He didn't feel like the big boss. Ryuji's the guy on par with Kiryu's power, and you just feel moments between them of just like the energy and the electricity is just amazing. And that's just setting up the story. Like I said, this all happens within the first hour of the game. There's a massive amount of more behind this. There's a terrorist bombing shortly after this. There's a kidnapping. So much more. And this is an incredible story. And honestly, Yakuza Kiwami 2 is so freaking good. It's a little more Yakuza 0 than Yakuza Kiwami in my mind, and that's a good thing. I could probably do just 20 minutes talking about the story, and because so many different interesting things happen. Now, of course, a lot of great characters are coming back, and you'll see almost all of them that were still alive at the end of Yakuza Kiwami. The story is larger. I've talked about only 2 chapters here, mind you, but there's 16 packed chapters in this game, and some are a little slower than others, but God, it's all building to epic moments, and it's so much fun. And then, of course, there's the side stories. And oh my god, the side stories. Well, let's just dive in there with a couple of them. And just to be clear, this is just the pure insanity of Yakuza 0 levels, not the tamer Kiwami levels. Now, on the screen already, we should be showing the toilets with the pissing minigame that actually has a small story with it. We actually get another side story where Kiryu ends up taking topless photos, as I'm sure I'm going to show. There's a great scene with adult baby diaper lovers that I can't. And my personal favorite, oh boy, it's Kiryu doing a voice acting for a video game that turns out to be Boys Love, and I laughed my butt off at that one. And honestly, I could go on, but the side stories are so good, both because of the writing and the premise in them. Kudos to the team for just these pieces, to have just such a serious and impactful story that means a lot. With the most bizarre side stories is impressive, and the fact that they just keep doing this over and over. Now, this doesn't even get into the Cabaret Club with its own stories, and my god, there's so much here, but it's all really good. If you like story, you're gonna enjoy Yakuza Kiwami 2. I don't want to go too much more into it because this is already a long video as is. But finally, well, we have to talk about my personal favorite character. We talk about him every time. Majima Goro is back. Now, I've held back on talking about him because, well, here's one of his entrances, and dear God, I love this character. Majima is a character that I've loved pretty much since the first time I saw him. Maybe he's even my spirit animal. He's just all id. He's kind of a minor role here. He does appear a few times and even has his own little mini game, but he seems to play a lighter role. That is until you unlock a side story just for him. You actually get 3 chapters of just playing as Majima. It's really only about 3 hours of gameplay, and it's short, but it shows a backstory of why Majima is where he is, and fills in what's happened with the Tojo clan over the past year. It's actually a good story. But here's the thing. It's also fully animated. This isn't a budget story or a fanfic. They put some serious money into this small side story, and again, kudos for it. I was playing through it and I was really impressed. Even as a limited, minor little event, I loved it. And then I just want to talk about one scene. Majima's story probably has the best moment that is in the Yakuza franchise so far. It's something for the fans, of course, and it's something that only guys who played all the games will understand, but it's really hard to talk about, but it was so damn good to see. If you've played this mode, you already know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, definitely play it if you're a fan of Yakuza. Just trust me on it. So, I've gone on and on about the story of Yakuza Kiwami 2, but Yakuza Kiwami 2's story is so freaking good, it deserves a lot of attention. Let's talk about the gameplay, though. And here's the thing, the gameplay is very solid. It's what we've come to expect from the Yakuza series. Yakuza Kiwami 2 returns to the same formula that the Yakuza series has used in both of its previous games, but has revamped it quite a bit. Kiryu ends up running into combat at almost every turn here, but maybe a little less than it has been before, or maybe it's just that the transition is so nice and smooth that I barely notice it. The combat is what we've come to expect as well. Now, this time, Kiryu only has one fighting style, the Dragon of Dojima style that he developed in Yakuza Kiwami. It's actually interesting because there's a subtle story here that isn't really told, how Kiryu's advanced from 3 fighting styles to focusing in on this one style, and now that's all he uses. The thing is, the combat in Yakuza Kiwami 2 is, I'll be honest, I think it's a bit easy. I played the entire game on hard difficulty and rarely had trouble. Even when something really challenged me, I had enough health drinks and heat drinks to fill my health meter or heat meter multiple times over at almost any point in the game, and money was never a challenge, so I could always go buy even more. The thing is, I kind of prefer this to Yakuza Kiwami, which was a bit difficult at times, mostly due to how they set up the boss fights to need to use finisher and the drinks to even finish them, and switching styles kind of didn't work as well. In addition, Kiryu now has the ability to store weapons he doesn't want to use in the current battle, and that allows players to save up weapons for major battles. It's actually a really nice addition to the formula. And then there's actually a great new RPG leveling system as well. It's now based on 5 different types of experience. Well, it's not perfect, it works well enough, and I think it's my favorite of the 3. And Kiryu keeps gaining these stats from everything he does, from story progression, to random fights, to eating food, or just beating the side quests. This is in contrast to being focused on money in the previous game, where the further out you were in the story, the more you got from progression, or even you could break it by using either of the minigames. Here, these come from special sources. It's not as easy to break, but you'll still get a ton of them. Now, you can get a ton of upgrades as well, from locker key locators to side quest locators. You can get so many different upgrades, such as the heat improvements or anything else. And many upgrades are actually worth it, including just the flat stat points to health, heat, attack, and defense. It's a great example of how RPG systems should be made in games. Constant progression, no microtransactions, and you feel your character getting more powerful each level. So that works well. Now, much of the game is actually about exploration. When you aren't chasing the next story mission, or even sometimes when you are, you can walk around either of the game's 2 districts, Sodenburi or Kamurocho, and there's hundreds of little things to interact with. There's the mini games that are famous, the video games, in this one it's Virtual Fighter and Virtual On being featured, and of course the side quests. And there's really 2 big mini games here. Maybe they should even be called maxi games for how huge they are. Similar to Yakuza 0, we have the Cabaret Club, and Kiryu is now the host instead of Majima, and it's freaking great. I mean, it's as good as it was in the first game, and I love the Cabaret Club minigame there. I love it even more here. And again, I love being a host rather than a customer, as you were in Yakuza Kiwami. Now, in addition, there's actually stories for all the Platinum hosts as well. You can follow them, and there's so much more. It's just packed with content. It's big enough that it could almost be its own game. And what's great is that a certain character comes back from the first Cabaret Club. It's great to see her again. And when Yakuza uses these callbacks, they're almost always efficient. Now, as I mentioned, Majima Goro has a minigame. It's called Clan Creator. This one is a little bit odd, but it's essentially an RTS where characters can be stationed to protect construction equipment for Majima construction, and they're protecting it from waves of enemies. It's actually a really good game, but there's a couple flaws that I have to call out. I honestly can't judge Clan Creator properly because I got the DLC while pre-ordering the game, and it gave me a ton of bonuses, including extra currency for the mode that just made my character way more powerful. But even with that, I found the mode to be just too easy, especially for people who have experience with RTSs. If you level your characters well, use the ability, pay for better stats in-game, which you're supposed to, you stop having any challenge in the mode. I don't know if that's the DLC that made it that easy, I didn't use any of these special characters, mind you, or if it's just too easy of a mode early on. Now, I do love the victory scene of Clan Creator, so here it is. And of course, it's good, but the mode itself didn't grip me as much, though the story of both of the Maxi games are pretty good. Honestly, if they just made the Cabaret Club its own video game, like I said, I probably would just buy it by itself because I really love that mode. And Clan Creator, I'm sure I could get just as deep, but it doesn't work for me as well in this one, of course. Of course, there's even more mini-games in Yakuza Kiwami 2. There's a baseball mini-game that actually now feels almost like a scaled-down version of MLB The Show. That's a game I worked on in the past. We'll talk about that another time. And it's not as good, but it's still very good improvements. Golfing is absolutely enjoyable. Again, not as good as great golf games, but it's definitely worth playing a few rounds of. Darts has been improved and made much more harder, but that's again another reason to play more of it, and so on down the line of almost all these games. There's all the gambling, mahjong, the underground casinos, and I believe there's an underground fighting ring that I didn't find yet, and more. You'll get lost in all these diversions. Now, not everything is perfect here. The karaoke minigame I am going to call out. It's back, it's good, but the cutscenes don't show up for every song, and when they do, it's just stuff from previous games in the series. There's nothing like Yakuza Zero's amazing karaoke scenes that I still love to watch and laugh. And, well, let's be honest also, there's no 24-hour Cinderella. Why not, guys? And then there's this. Oh god, this one. So, this starts with Kiryu getting into a sub-story where he goes and finds a shop that lets him take pictures of girls. That's a real person. This is a real video, and honestly, I feel wrong. But just when I think I understand the Yakuza series, they do something like this that just, it's too much for part of me, and part of me is like, well, when you accept the adult diaper scene and you're okay with the dominatrix scene, is this really that bad? You know, probably not. It's just weird. Now, a couple other quick things. The save system only has 13 slots. There's 16 chapters. That kind of sucks. A few side quests are not as good as others, just simple fetch quests. And admittedly, the main story has some odd pacing, doing a few of those same fetch quests. I can't fully defend it. But here's the thing. Yakuza Kiwami 2 is exactly the game I was hoping to see. It's a continuation of a storyline that's already been in two very big games, and yet the story is probably the best it's ever been. The exploration and diversions are again top-notch and a return to why I loved Yakuza 0, but at the same time, the main story is also amazing. The graphics are great, and the thing is, Yakuza Kiwami 2 does everything right. If you've enjoyed anything I've shown here, or any of the previous games, Yakuza Kiwami 2 is worth it, no questions asked. And if you're unsure, I'd give it a shot. I'm going to give Yakuza Kiwami 2 a 5 out of 5. This game deserves more attention. It's one of the best games I've ever played, and honestly, it's what this series is about. However, I will say if you are interested, I would recommend going for Yakuza 0 and then going for Yakuza Kiwami after that. Play these games in order. They're really cheap on Steam. I imagine that they're similar price on PS4, and honestly, each one is worth it. 20 or 30 bucks a piece for a ton of content that will take you at least 40 if not 60 hours. I mean, I blazed through this one and I still put in about 50 hours total in the game, and I could have done even more with it. Yakuza Kiwami 2, though, is easily my favorite of the series, but you'll want the entire story, and every minor negative of Yakuza Kiwami and Yakuza 0 they're all worth it. Check this series out, check this game out. I just love Yakuza Kiwami 2, and it's worth it. And Sega, I think you know what I'm going to say, but I have to do it anyways. When are we going to see Yakuza 3 remastered? Give us more. PC needs it, PS4 needs it. I know you have it on Japan on the PS4, but please bring them to the West. I'm begging you. We need more Kiryu, we need more Majima, and honestly, there's 4 more games in the series. I'm willing to buy as many as you'll deliver, and I know you're even doing more like Judgment, so please bring them to PC. And there we go. That is Yakuza Kiwami 2 in the bag. There's been 3 of these games in a year, like I said. Honestly, they've become my favorite series. And like I said, I'm going to be showing full versions of some of these scenes. Check the videos on the screen probably now. It's the Yakuza Kiwami 2 supplemental. Enjoy that. And here we are again at the end of the review, and thank you very much for watching this video. I know it was a bit long, but this is, again, just a massive game, and I wanted to talk about each piece of it and why I think it deserved the score it did. If you've enjoyed this, consider subscribing. I appreciate it, and let me know what you think in the comments. And until next time, I'm King Link, and thank you for watching.